Hi everybody, I'm Dr. John Douillard, and today I want to talk about, it's October and it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and so I've been writing a handful of articles about breast health from the Ayurvedic perspective, one on pranayama, one on lifestyle, and one on the foods that we could eat to help protect ourselves from, help from breast cancer and just for breast health in general. In this video, I want to talk about lifestyle. It's crazy. 12% of the American population, women get breast cancer. One study showed that a lifestyle can actually decrease the risk of breast cancer, in this study, in postmenopausal women by 34%. So there's study after study that shows that a healthy lifestyle can do dramatic things to reduce breast cancer risk. In fact, one study, which I thought was quite amazing, they measured an inflammation diet, a lousy kind of a diet that a lot of adolescents and young people eat. It was a study, it was from the Nurses Health Study with over 45,000 volunteers to actually evaluate, their diet over a long period of time. And they found that when they had an inflammation diet or an inflammatory diet, included high sugar, high fat, not a lot of vegetables, a lot of meat, a lot of processed meat, red meat, margarine, soft drinks, the food that a lot of adolescents eat and a lot of young adults eat, even to this day, they found that when the women who had the higher amount of the inflammatory diet, when they were adolescents, so when they were an adolescent, they had a lousy diet, they had a 35% increased risk of getting breast cancer before menopause. And as young adults, if they had that lousy diet when they were young adults, they had a 41% increased risk of getting breast cancer before menopause. So we have, diet when you're a young adult, adolescent, and it's a young adult, that dramatically increases your risk of breast cancer before menopause. And we have studies showing that a lifestyle can dramatically reduce by 34% the risk of postmenopausal breast cancer just with good diet. And in that study, they talked about things like obesity, not letting ourselves get overweight, by eating properly and not overeating. This research on calorie restriction, we eat 100% more food than we actually need, right? And then we go ahead, so we have 100% of the food we actually eat and need. Then we eat another 100% more food than we need. And the studies show if we just reduced it by 30%, still getting roughly 70% more food than we need, there's significant reduction of almost every health concern, including obesity and blood pressure, blood sugar, cardiovascular risk. All these things dramatically change just by eating a little bit less, right? How important is that? Exercise. We all know how important exercise is. We also know how important not smoking and drinking and shift work. These are all the things in that study that reduce the risk by 34%. Diabetes, breast implants were also on that list. Stress on that list. Hormone replacement therapy after menopause, and of course the diet, which is really, really important. In addition to that, another study showed was that it followed 17,000 women for 9 years, found out the women who had a better lifestyle had a significant reduction in breast cancer by twofold. And they found that women who did not go on hormone therapy when they were younger and women who had a healthy diet had a twofold decreased risk in breast cancer. And then when women in that same study, women who had breast cancer and had kind of a inflammatory diet, as we mentioned before, had a twofold increased risk of dying from the breast cancer. So that was really, really important. So what does that mean? From the Ayurvedic life perspective, there's so much about lifestyle. I mean, I could keep you busy for 24 hours a day doing lifestyle things to help you, but I'm not going to do that. There's simple things that you can do, like go to bed early. Wake up early, begin to live your circadian rhythms with the clock, with the seasons, more rest in the winter, get up earlier in the summer, and flow with the cycles as they change, which is such a beautiful thing to watch happen, and then try to navigate through time changes, which is sort of a dumb idea because it throws us off in that regard, but do the best you can. I did a podcast with a melatonin researcher. Her name was Paula Witt from Duquesne University, and she did research and published study, and they're attached to the podcast, where she saw that melatonin, which is a regulator of your circadian clock, actually reversed breast cancer. So this really powerful, this whole idea of living with the seasons and going with the cycles, and how important that is. Yoga, breathing, and meditation, critically important to de-stress, one of the risk factors for breast cancer. Pranayama breathing techniques, one of the other articles on my website at lifespa.com, you can go and just type in pranayama for breast health. And I talk about the value of different breathing techniques which strengthen your diaphragm. And your diaphragm, the major muscle of lymphatic flow in your body, the major lymphatic pump. And studies show that women who have breast cancer, had a significant amount of them, had congestion, lymph congestion in the anterior diaphragmatic lymph nodes. So when that diaphragm is really pumping, it's pumping lymphatic waste from the belly and the abdomen, as well as the whole chest cavity and the breast tissue. And we all know that the breast is so critically linked to lymphatic flow. And that's something Ayurveda talks a lot about. And if you're interested in the lymphatic system, we have an ebook called The Miracle of Lymph ebook. I've gotten so many articles. Just type in lymph at lifespa.com and you'll read all the articles from the ancient wisdom understanding, Ayurvedic understanding of what the lymphatic system does, and now the modern science that backs it up. And unfortunately, sadly, most of that research is just literally buried in the medical journals. Very little of that, if any, is actually in medical practice. And they say it can take 25 years for a study to reach medical practice, if ever. And Ayurveda was all about the lymph. In fact, the study of the lymph is called the study of rasa, which is called rasayana, which is one of the 8 branches of Ayurveda for the study of longevity, right? So the study of longevity in Ayurveda is the study of your lymphatic system. So how critically important is that? So please do your homework and read up on that as well. Whole foods, non-processed food, refined foods, not getting a lot of sugar in your diet, reducing the amount of meat you eat. The centenarians who live the longest on the planet have a diet of around 10% animal protein. So work your way down to a mostly plant-based diet, 90% plant-based diet, and then use a little bit of meat and a little bit of fish, however you like to do it, or even dairy if you're more on the Ayurvedic side of things, however you want to do it. But you can, a little bit of that animal protein is oftentimes all we need. But many of us have digestive problems, right? So we can't eat light foods. We have to consume so much to get, a percentage of that absorbed and assimilated so we feel like satisfied from the meal. People can't eat wheat and dairy and nuts and seeds and legumes and lectins and nightshades and goitrogens and oxalates, and people can't eat so many foods today. Why is that? Because our digestive system's broken down. And I would highly recommend that if you have a digestive system that can't eat X, Y, or Z, and you once were able when you were a kid, that I would find the solution to that problem instead of just taking the food out of your diet. Sure, take it out of your diet for a while because you don't feel good eating it, like wheat. That's why I wrote Eat Wheat, my book Eat Wheat. Yeah, take it out, but then fix the reason why you can't eat wheat. Because your ability to digest well is linked to your ability to detoxify well. And in 2019, the EPA reported over 70 million tons of toxic chemicals, environmental pollutants in our atmosphere in 2019. So we breathe, we expose to, we have to eventually process that all through our liver, which is part of the digestive pathway. And if we don't have good function there, we just store those fats in the lymph, our belly fat, our hip fat, our brain fat, and then that becomes problematic over time. So please, please, please don't sweep your digestive issues under the rug. 74% of you have digestive concerns according to the studies. So that's a big factor, really big factor. Of course, eating early, not eating late dinners from the Ayurvedic perspective is shown to really offset or imbalance the circadian rhythms. Very, very important. People eat the same amount of calories at breakfast and lunch, and then some eat the same amount of calories at lunch and supper. The ones who ate breakfast and lunch lost significantly more weight, one of the risk factors for breast cancer. And then, of course, one of my favorite things is seasonal eating. I wrote a book called The 3-Season Diet, all about eating with the seasons. And now we have science that suggests that the bugs in the soil change from season to season. And now we also have new science from Stanford that shows that the bugs in humans, in the hunter-gatherer Hadza tribe change from season to season. So what does that mean? We have bugs in our gut in the spring that are really good at digesting fat and fiber. And then we have a complete different inoculation of bugs in our gut in the fall based on the foods you eat, because the bugs come from the soil, which changes from season to season. So eating seasonally is part of our changing of the microbial guard. So you don't have nothing, and most of us, we have just really a significant amount of bugs for digesting carbohydrates, because we've been doing that for 30 years when they started subsidizing wheat for pennies on the dollar in 1980. We've been eating wheat, bread forever, where traditionally those cycles would shift. We wouldn't have wheat in the spring because there was no grain in the spring. But amylase, the enzyme for digesting wheat, in your body and mind to this day, increases in the fall for the winter harvest or the fall harvest of those grains. So we should make those shifts, and then we don't end up with a stable of bugs in our gut that are so good at carbohydrates, they're just dumping sugar in our blood in such a massive way. We have an epidemic of diabetes and prediabetes in our culture. All that can be reversed just by recognizing the power of eating seasonal food, whole food, unrefined food, unprocessed food, and how critically important is that. And then finally, is the idea of giving and loving and caring for others. We have science to show that when you do that, you care for others, we increase the longevity hormone called oxytocin. And the more you give and love and care for others, the more of this longevity hormone we make. The telomeres in your chromosomes lengthen, which is with an indicator of longevity. And this is how we bring our body back into balance. And in Ayurveda, this is all called a sattvic lifestyle, a lifestyle in sync with the natural cycle. So please go to LifeSpa.com, check out all the articles we have articles on breast health. I think I've got 3 or 4 of them up right now for the month of October. So please check that out. Thanks for listening. I'm Dr. John Douillard.